Good evening and salam. I am Miriam Afolabi and a member of the MACFEST team. I'm delighted to welcome you to MACFEST 2021. This evening, we are thrilled to host this event where we'll be learning about Ibn Khaldun 700 years ago, then and now. I'm delighted to introduce you to the host of this event, Mina Woods. I would like to share a few words about Mina. Mina Woods is a former HMI Ofsted Spectre and works across the British and international education sectors. She held senior leadership positions in English schools and further education colleges, notably principal of a secondary academy and principal of an adult college. She has authored two books, which are The Assessment of Prior Learning and Bilingual Learners and Secondary Curriculum Transformed, Enabling All to Achieve. She is currently the chair of Climate Ed, an educational charity working with schools to raise environmental awareness. Before I hand over to Mina, I would like the audience to please follow MACFEST on our media sites of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so you'll be notified of our upcoming events. Thank you, and over to you, Mina.
Good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here, and welcome to all who are currently watching. You are in for a real treat this evening with Munira Alsusa. Munira is a bilingual Palestinian teacher who currently works in Manchester. She is interested in multilingualism, celebrating different cultures. Munira is interested in reviving famous Muslim characters from the past, to make them known to the new generation and to celebrate their invaluable work and benefit from their theories and great contributions to history and civilization. So I'm really, really pleased today to be welcoming Munira to our MACFEST and look forward very much to hearing what she has to say concerning the philosophy, concerning Ibn Khaldun. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mina. That's lovely. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and good afternoon on Tuesday, the 30th of March. A lovely, very sunny afternoon here in Manchester. And I would like first to thank MACFEST for giving me this chance to talk about one of a scholar like Ibn Khaldun. I would like to thank Kisra as well for her great efforts in reviving the Islamic culture and visiting those places and remembering those names who are nearly being forgotten by people. So thank you very much. And I will start sharing my screen about Ibn Khaldun. There we go. Can we all see the screen? Yeah, right. So Ibn Khaldun, 700 years ago. We need to know a bit about Ibn Khaldun before we talk about his work and his Muqaddimah and all that. We have a couple of points that I would like by the end of this session or by the end of this meeting with you. So whenever Ibn Khaldun's name is mentioned, so you can remember and relate what he wrote about and what he discussed in his books. So Ibn Khaldun, his name is Zayd Abdurrahman ibn Muhammad ibn Khaldun. And may I just announce, let you know that we usually, in Arabic, it's very common to say the name Khaldun, and that is not correct. It's Khaldun, because in Arabic language, we don't have an O sound, we have U sound. So it should be mentioned as Ibn Khaldun, not Ibn Khaldun, as it's commonly used in the Arab world. So his name is, that is his name, even known as Ibn Khaldun. He was born on the 27th of May, 1332, so nearly 700 years ago, and he died in 1406. So he was around the age of 73. Ibn Khaldun, it's really interesting at this time and what we're going through, the epidemic of coronavirus and the COVID, because Ibn Khaldun lived very similar circumstances. Where he was at his time, people then suffered from very similar epidemic, even deadly, I would say, and that was the plague. and so many people died during that epidemic. And funny enough, we're talking about Ibn Khaldun now, and we are going through something similar and as bad as the plague then. So he lived the suffering. He lived the suffering at that time, and his parents died during that epidemic. And what's really interesting that that the name Ibn Khaldun was remembered in COVID this year and was mentioned by, guess who? Boris Johnson. Interesting, isn't it? So I'm gonna show you a clip of when Mr. Johnson mentioned Ibn Khaldun, okay, and why he mentioned him. I need to say a few things here. Rishi Sunak is involved, so it was about taxes and the fail of people when they had the policy failure. Lots of people were furloughed. So I will leave you with this clip from Twitter when Boris Johnson mentioned Ibn Khaldun recently and at the beginning of the epidemic. Okay. We share. Yeah.
Parents the ability where they to offer special educational needs schools, free schools, and we will back that up. We'll support them. I think very often local authorities need that extra help to make sure they have enough provision nearby. So what's that mean? More money? It will be part of our overall. You want to put more money in the schools. You want to put more money in the north. You want to roll out full fibre broadband to every house in the country. You want to put 20,000 more police on the streets, and you also want to cut taxes. I mean, come on, that's how you take this. Well, actually, of course, as the great Tunisian scholar and sage Ibn Khaldun pointed out as early as the 14th century, there are plenty of taxes that you can cut, which will actually increase your revenues. And there are ways of making sure that you stimulate growth, you stimulate enterprise, and you get more in. But what is certainly true is at the moment, certainly, there is cash available. And we're going to make sure. Where's that cash available?
So you've heard it. It's from Ibn Khaldun. Now we need to stop sharing. Go back here. Oh, sorry. So he talked about taxes. So Ibn Khaldun was a well-known for his cleverness in dealing with taxes and how to manage that. So he was a he was a historian, he was a sociologist, he was an economic, and he studied economics as well. He did philosophy, and he was a mathematician as well. Okay, so he was he dealt with so many fields, and as we've just seen, he talked about how to deal with economics. So it's very interesting to know that like leaders and people who are in charge of the economy, like Boris Johnson, and later on we're going to see Ronald Reagan even mentioned him, how those people to be in that position, and I'm sure they've read most of Ibn Khaldun's books about economics and politics and all that. So to be in that position and to read a book about Ibn Khaldun, he must be something. He must wrote something in those books, in his books, that can help generations and help other people after 700 years to use his work. Am I okay? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, you can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. For a moment, I thought I lost it.
No, we can hear you.
Okay. So, yes, he was, as I said, even 700 years, he's still people talking about him, giving example of his work, and that must be for a reason, because he was good. He was good in writing about individuals. He was good in writing about the nations rise and the nations, they go up and then go down. He questioned that, and he gave some sort of theory behind it. He talked about the rural and the modern cities. He compared between these two. That's something else I'll be talking about. He mentioned the importance of morals and ethics when you are a ruler and when you are when you are in charge of other people's lives and daily life, let's say. So he mentioned that people who are in charge of their countries, of their nations, they should have some morals, some ethics. And this is, it's a very, very important point, because his critics said that al-asabiyya, it means that you should be very, very strict and limited to your own tribe in a way, is not working nowadays. But what he said, it explains that if you have the ethics and the morals, those should not let you do anything that is against humanity or doing anything that might harm people or a nation. So this is a difference. I'm going to go. I'm going to explain al-asabiyya later on through the slides. So Ibn Khaldun, to summarize, he lived 700 years ago. He had so many talents in economics, maths, history, urbanism, and of course, money, taxes, and how to set taxes. Okay. This is something, a quotation by Ibn Khaldun, when he said, "He who finds a new path is a pathfinder, even if the trail has to be found again by others." And this is exactly what we've seen when Boris Johnson mentioned his work. So it's just tell you that people go back to something's been written and been investigated 700 years ago. I believe it's a credit. It's credit to Ibn Khaldun, and it tells you that no matter time is not an issue here, because it's his thoughts, his theories that people are benefiting from now, even after this long time. So, and he who walks far ahead of his contemporaries is a leader, even though centuries passed before he is recognized as such. And so I believe this exactly fit in with Ibn Khaldun and what we're living now through this epidemic, and using his theories and his way of dealing with finance, with taxes, and to apply to the system of some great countries, the one that we, well, in America or in the UK. Okay, so that is name in Arabic. Ibn Khaldun, he suffered a lot, and he lived in Spain, he lived in Egypt, he lived in Tunisia, he lived in Morocco, so he traveled a lot, and that traveling, and he wasn't happy with what he was doing. So of course there were lots of people who did not like Ibn Khaldun for like personal reasons or maybe ideology, and that's why every now he is set in a certain job, people will start and making things, telling things about him, where he is then removed. He was prisoned for 2 years, and so he was like changing jobs. For him, it wasn't the money, but he wasn't satisfied with what he did in those jobs. So he was like changing jobs all the time, and because of the political situation at that time, lots of people, the leaders some of them were like agreeing with what he says, so they will be happy with him. Other than that, they will kick him out of the work that he'll be doing. So he suffered a lot, and so yeah, the political winds shifted. So he was like on and off, but generally speaking, he wasn't happy with the job that he was doing there, because it was like giving him the minimum of the money, and the money wasn't his target after all. He was after something more deeper, more intellectual than that. Okay, so Ibn Khaldun encountered adventures, a lot of adventures. He met Timur-Lenk. He met so many people that again gave him the ideas and gave him the inspiration to write and to expand on his theories and his ideas about real life issues like al-Asabiyya or the rise and fall of nations. So that is Ibn Khaldun. We might come back to this later. As I mentioned before, Ibn Khaldun, this is the picture of the plague covering the whole of the world at that time, 1351. It's very similar to what we're going through now. So this is something, I don't know, it's just, it made me stop and think that, you know, epidemics, things are repeated in this world. So there and then they have the plague, now we have COVID, and he suffered. And as mentioned earlier, his parents died during that epidemic. Education, Ibn Khaldun, he was brought up in a religious family. And he was, even in his writing, he's always referred to Quran and to Sirah. And he believed that if you are following the Quran and the instructions that is given by God, that should guarantee that you will live a happy life. Of course, he had lots of critics, and some people agreed with him, some people did not agree with him. But when you read his writing and when you understand what he says, I think there is logic in what he says. And it's just, I think for Ibn Khaldun, he needs to be given the time to understand what he says, okay, and to go through the background of what he says. You cannot judge him in nowadays rules and theories. He lived, well, 700 years ago, so it's not fair on him to judge him in our own style or in our own way, because it's not fair on him. So he was brought up in a typical Muslim family. He followed the tradition, and he wasn't easily convinced to change his ideas or to try and escape from the religious influence. So it's
Munira,
sorry.
Is there a slide for this? Are you showing a slide? We can't
Yes.
see a slide at the moment. Please do show that.
There is no slide there.
Yeah, so I think while you're talking, maybe you forgot to go to the next one. Yeah,
Oh.
please share if you don't mind.
Sorry. Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Oh. Yeah. Is that better now? Yeah. Is that? Can you see it now?
I'm going to say, yes, I can see it now.
Thanks,
Education
Lisa.
and early years, that's the one.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that.
I'll keep an eye on it, no problem.
Please, thank you. So yeah, so he's, as I mentioned, he spent a couple of years in prison because some people there, they did not like his way of thinking, and because they don't want people to understand what's going on. So a way of getting rid of him will be happy. That's why he was in prison. So that is for his education and family. When we say Ibn Khaldun, there's like certain phrases that I really would like everyone who's here to remember. First of all, Kitab, of course, Al-Muqaddimah. Al-Muqaddimah, it came in 7 volumes. It's amazing. You need time to read it. You can't just read it in very it's very intellectual writing. So you need your time to read and understand it. So Al-Muqaddimah, one of them. We need to be familiar as well with al-Asabiyya, and I'm going to explain that in a minute as well. Al-Asabiyya, also the rise and fall of nations. So these three phrases or 3 ideas, they have been discussed thoroughly in Ibn Khaldun's writings. So moving on to his writing. So as I mentioned, Al-Muqaddimah, there is called the Introduction to History. He discussed the historical method and provided the necessary criteria for distinguishing historical truth from error. In a minute, I will come back to this point and explain it more when he mentioned about the Bedouin and the city. So he compared these two lifestyle. In Ibn Khaldun's theories and his way of thinking, he believed that where in Badia, which is the Bedouin, the simple life in the rural areas, people there are closer to God, and they have their ethics are they are like natural. They are generous people. They are protective. They are kind. They wouldn't harm anyone. They're really, really like, you know, ideal people. And this is why he believed the civilization or a nation, usually they start somewhere in the rural areas. Now, if he believed if this tribe or this group was started in the Bedouin area or the rural area, stay together and look after each other and never change for money or for status or to rule. If they keep looking after each other and preserving their ethics and their morals, this group is guaranteed that going to reach the top of the government. They're going to rule. Simple as that. They will rule and they will rise and they will have the authority of a nation. When this group or this tribe start to change their morals and the ethics, and they started to indulge into luxury and money and all life luxuries, this is the start of when a nation will come down. And he gave even like a number, like between 200 years to 300 years, that's, well, this is the range for a nation to stay unless they are maintaining their ethics and their good ideas about ruling without being selfish or just looking after themselves and the family and relatives. And I'm afraid, and I'm sorry to say this as well, I think nowadays we have lots of examples where in nations where people, common people, are living miserable lives and poverty is controlling their lives, while in the same place, same country, a totally different group, they're living the life of kings, luxury life, cars, houses, you mentioned it. So this huge difference in lifestyle and in the rich and poor, this is, he believes, Ibn Khaldun believes, this is the start for that nation to start and collapse, and then to be removed, and another tribe who is who has their own beliefs and their own ethics and morals and care about ordinary people will take over. Okay, so if I go very quickly to this, sorry, I'm going very quickly to this just to explain what I just said. Yeah, so he mentioned they start like a tribe. Yeah, simple people, they have their own beliefs in being kind, generous, as I said before. So they start here. Then, if they give up on their own beliefs and on morals and ethics and be tempted by gold and a luxury life, and living their life, ignoring other people, ignoring what's going on in the streets of their country, then that is the start of their collapsing. And again, they'll be replaced by another group who will be doing exactly the same. And this is the cycle of the rise and fall of nations. So that is his way. And to be honest, I don't know if you will agree or not. I think we've seen this, and there are so many examples. Yeah, we've seen it even in modern times, where we've seen people who were living at the top, and suddenly they were grabbed from holes from underground. Okay, so this is for his main idea about the start and the fall of nations and Al-Asabiyya. We're going to come back to Al-Asabiyya later, but I will just go through some of his work as well. So he's considered one of the, well, we're still talking about the Muqaddimah, and it's a phenomenal work. As I said, it's been translated into so many languages, and I'm very sorry to say that being educated in Arab university, we've learned about Khaldun, but unfortunately we weren't given lots of details about the Muqaddimah. We didn't know anything about it, which is sad, which is really sad. And that's why I believe those sessions and you know, MACFEST, they have done a great job in reviving those names and letting people know about the way they thought in the past and how we are still using their thoughts. Right, he was Ibn Khaldun. He was an adventurer. He was an adventurer, and he went, as I said, to so many places. And you can see he of course, he was born in Tunisia, in Morocco. Well, in the North Morocco, and he traveled all over the Middle East, Egypt. He went everywhere. Spain. He went, well, the Middle East, the Mediterranean, I would say. And he's always was very keen to educate, to read, and to mix with the scholars, and to educate himself. And so here he played an important role in Sevilla, where Seville in Spain. They was called Banu al-Ahmad, Banu Abbad. He was close friend to them. So when he was friend with them, they put him in a very, really good position. And later on, when things were changing again, he was kicked out of that position. So he mixed with so many rulers, and it was changing positions in different institutions, and that's why I believe gave him the experience and the inspiration to talk about what he's been talking about in Muqaddimah, and to give, I believe, a good recipe for many ideas like the rise and fall of nations, the Asabiyya, the ethics. So when he wrote, he did not just write it because he wanted to write about, he lived it. So he's got the experience, and that is something great. If you've seen the experience with your own eyes and you have evidence for that, I think that will make it more valid, and it'll make it more believable. And that's why I believe this is one of the reasons that Ibn Khaldun is still remembered till now. Ibn Khaldun and the community. And this is, as I said before, when he talked about how the people in rural areas and the city live. So Al-Muqaddimah, when we say Al-Muqaddimah, what is Al-Muqaddimah? Teaching is a craft, definitely, and those teachers will agree with that. Okay, so in fact, it has, when we say Muqaddimah, it has the basics and the ritual of teaching. If you have good people who are aware of what they're teaching, if they have the foundation of humanity, of understanding human as a one concept, not just thinking about themselves or about their own lives. I think these are the people who should be in charge. These are the people who should make change in people's lives. So I will just read from, this is the real book picture, by the way. So this Al-Muqaddimah, it's an impressive document, and it's a gist of his wisdom and hard-earned experience. And this is what I've mentioned earlier. His writing wasn't just from his own fiction. It was totally dependent on his experience, his wide experience over and the different adventures and the different jobs that he's been through in different countries. He used his political and his first knowledge of the people of Maghreb to formulate many ideas. And so he was born in northern Morocco, and Tunisia. He lived there. And this is one of the critics' point, that Ibn Khaldun, his experience was just limited to northern Africa, but that is not true at all. because he moved to Egypt and he moved to the Middle East. And so his writing wasn't just limited to about North Africa or the life there. I think it was more comprehensive than that. Okay, he discussed the tribal societies and the social forces would be the most interesting part of his thesis. I will go through this again in a couple of slides later, and we will talk about it, the rural and the rise of cities, and why life in rural areas is much safer than living in the city. His theories of science of Imran, sociology, are the pearls of his wisdom. Okay, so I'm going to give more details on these. The structure, how the Muqaddimah was written. It has six chapters. So chapter 4, it was about human civilization in general. 2, it was about the Bedouin civilization and the rural areas and the Asabiya and the savage nation tribes and their condition of life and how they start their lives. Okay, they start with basic things, but they have the ethics inside them and they have the belief in Allah or in God. So these two things make them stronger and help them to reach, to control a nation. These are, for Ibn Khaldun, are really, really crucial to have the belief in Allah, a strong belief in Allah, okay? And to do things, to be a human being, basically. Not to harm, not to steal, not to do any of these things because you want to have your status or you want to be in control of a nation. Okay, so this is his idea, is civilization starts in the Bedouin, in the basic life, because people there, they're not tempted by life luxuries, and that's why they are genuine in building a nation or starting a state. Chapter 3 is about dynasties and the royal authority and the caliphate and how they reach a really, really high status, and then suddenly they came down, and we've touched that earlier, but we will talk about this a bit more. Chapter 4, it was about countries and cities that all form sedentary civilization, the conditions occurring there. Okay, so this is about, it's very related to countries and cities, how they survive, what are the criteria for a country or for a city to stay and to be mentioned in history. Why? And why some cities, they just disappear and no one knows about them. Chapter 5, it was about various aspects of making a living. And I think here it comes the finance and the taxing. And this is after establishing a country or city. It comes the real life issues. And finance, of course, is a key point in this. Chapter 6, it is about the different sciences. And as I said before, Ibn Khaldun was a mathematician. He was a philosopher. He had all the skills that a scientist need. So it wasn't just about one aspect. So everything related together. So to talk about cities and countries, and later on to talk about finance and how to do taxes, I think that's a talent you don't see nowadays. So he was gifted. Definitely, he was gifted. This is a repetition of what we said before about the cities and how they survive and why do they crumble and they fall into ruins. It's just repeating the same idea here. I'm just worried about the time. I can't see my time anywhere. Time, no. Right.
You have a few minutes yet, sister.
Okay, thank you. Should have bought, okay. So the community, as the Ibn Khaldun said, it's the Badawi and the Umran. So the Badawi is the Bedouins or the rulers, where it starts, nations, and then it moves on to Al-Imran or Al-Hadara civilization. So this is his idea of, he believes that civilization, Al-Hadara, starts in Bedouin areas, in rural areas. And then depending on that group or that tribe, if they keep looking after their ethics, their morals, referring to Quran, referring to their Islam, this will definitely flourish, and they will have the chance to control, to be a famous nation. And I think we have many examples to prove this point. Not this one, but there's something I want to mention. It's about, why Ibn Khaldun he mentioned about the city. So with a first-rate intellect with vast interest in all major fields of knowledge, that was what we said. Ibn Khaldun was both a thinker and a doer. Some considered him to be the founder of sociology. Historians admire his wisdom of the rise and fall of great powers. Marxists praised him for the penetrating thoughts on the power of economic forces in shaping the individual attitudes and social relations. And as I said before, and maybe some of you would agree with me that the Ottoman Empire, for example, from my point of view, I think they followed what Ibn Khaldun gave as a recipe, as a recipe for a nation to be successful and to last for a long time. The Ottoman Empire was, they had the notion of asabiya, but the asabiya in a positive way, not the asabiya of a negative way. What is the difference? Asabiya in a positive way, where you believe where you believe in yourself as a tribe or as a group. You have your own morals, you have your own ethics. You refer to the Quran and to the Sunnah, and you believe strongly in that. And you, under no circumstances, you should do anything against the instructions or against the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah. So you shouldn't be doing killing people for any reason. You shouldn't be stealing. You shouldn't give yourself an excuse to do massacres and bad stuff because of the asabiya. That will be a negative one. And that's again one of the points that Ibn Khaldun was criticized for, is the asabiya, it shouldn't work nowadays. But some people replied to that actually, where they said it's exactly in a simple way as I explained. It should be positive, it should be negative. So if you are a human being and you are not working against your beliefs or against the human rights, etc., that should be okay. Because if you are looking after, if you're looking after your nation and you are giving them what they need, why should people fear? And this is why he said, and he explained that people in rural areas, they don't need police there. They can protect themselves and they can protect others from the same tribe or the same nation, because they look after each other. And I think we had so many examples of this happening in some of the Islamic states throughout history. But he said, when the people who are the people who started as a nice tribe and a really good tribe, when they reach to the status and when they have control, then they start to look after themselves. They started to look after themselves. They enjoy life, the luxuries, and they forget about their people. And that's why people, because they're not feeling safe, they don't feel they are protected, they don't have the basic needs for their life, police is needed, soldiers are needed to protect those people in charge. And I think, again, we have so many examples in this. So he believed there's no need for policing, no need for the soldiers. If people in themselves are kind and they don't do anything against their beliefs, why should we need this? Why should we torture other people because of doing bad things? If we were giving them the right life, if they were supported, if they were given their needs, then why should they rebel? Why should they steal? Why they should kill each other? Okay, so that is his philosophy of the rural areas and the cities, and why he believed the life in in rural areas is much, much better than the city. Of course, again, there was some critics for that because they believe the city is the sign where you have education, you read, you mix. So the choice really, as this picture here explains, so you either have the simple life where you're closer to God, where you're closer to your nature as a kind of human being, or where you go to the city where there is education, there is temptations, there's luxury, but that comes at a cost where you're not feeling secure, where you're not feeling that you have your needs fulfilled as a human being. So if I move this one here. So Ibn Khaldun has a message for all of us today who live in an age of growing insecurity and global disorder. If history is any witness, and it's a major one for Ibn Khaldun, it tells us that the key to the material and spiritual well-being of a society is cohesion and solidarity. And his point, these can be achieved by having your own ethics, your morals. And as a Muslim, you should always refer to the Quran and to the Hadith and live like, when Sayyidina Muhammad's time, basically. So if you can do this, and if you can live this way, then the community, well, society, people can be happier, and there will be no need to use force, okay, to use force to manage people and put them under control. Human beings are by nature political beings in the sense that they are bound to live together in order to preserve their lineage, meet the basic needs, and realize their potential to be civilized. The destructive forces inherent in human nature are hastened by people learn how to coexist and help each other. And this is exactly what I've mentioned earlier, is when people become greedy, when people want to be richer than they can do, or more than they have to be. And when we have the different or the huge difference between classes, the poor and rich, I think this is where people started to feel insecure. People started to fight to live. Why? Because it wasn't fair. People become greedy. They're selfish, and this is when they're having their own luxuries. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we can see so many examples, and I'm sure you agree with me on that. Nowadays, I'm afraid, and I'm very sorry, that we're still seeing people living the life of luxury, while the people in their own countries, they can't find the bread to eat. And why? Because they have been tempted. They forgot about ethics. They forget about being a human being. Simple as that. I believe I will just show you another video from Mr. Donald Trump. Not Donald Trump, what's his name? Ronald Reagan. He talked about Ibn Khaldun, but this time he mentioned, he made a mistake actually, and I need to stop sharing. Let's go here. Oh, share screen. We need to go on. Oh. Yeah. This is Ronald Reagan. Can you see my screen, guys? Hello?
I can see you, but not the screen. You have to share it.
Okay. Yep. This one. Okay, that's it. Ronald Reagan. Do you remember him? Can you see him now?
Yeah, yes, yes, I can.
Yeah, brilliant. So this is Ronald Reagan. He made a mistake. And let's see who's going to guess what the mistake was.
Go on.
Oops. Sorry. Come on.
Economics college when I was young, and I learned there about Ibn Khaldun, who lived 1,200 years ago years ago, he said in the beginning of the empire, the rates were low, the tax rates were low, but the revenue was great. He said in the end of the empire, when the empire was collapsing, the rates were great and the revenue was low.
Interesting. Did anyone spot the mistake?
No, we didn't. Some people were listening for more sound, but never mind. You can tell us.
Yeah. Well, the mistake, he said he lived 1200 years ago. And it wasn't 1200 years ago.
Right.
It was 700 years ago. But his point about rich, so when the rich started to protect their empires and to protect their, their fortunes, they started to put lots of taxes. So this is, I'm not a person who understands a lot in finance, but it makes sense because when people are feeling insecure, the people who are in charge of a nation, they want to look after their own assets. They don't care about the people, normal people. They just want to make sure they stay in their sitting on their chairs, controlling the country, no matter how, even if that was unethical or illegal. They don't care. They just want to stay there, controlling their properties and their wealth. And for Ibn Khaldun, this is the start of their end, because they gave up on the ethics, the morals. From his point of view as well, they abandoned the Quran and the Islamic teachings that Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought and gave to Muslims. So basically, this is the al-asabiyya. So please, when you hear Ibn Khaldun talk about al-asabiyya, it's not the asabiyya that some people believe is like being dogmatic or being very biased to a certain group. It's not about that. It's about positive asabiyya. It's if you are starting with a group and you believe that you have your own beliefs and your own ethics to control, and you maintain this, and you are not tempted by the luxuries of life or by the money or by getting rich very quickly, then you can survive. Then a nation can survive for a very long time. But unfortunately, history has proved that it has gave us so many examples, because we've seen lots of nations and lots of civilizations started to collapse because the foundation started to corrupt. And usually corruption is a start, as I mentioned earlier. Corruption is the start of the fall of nations. When nations come into an end, that is the start. I think we need to leave a couple of minutes for questions. Okay.
We've got one question at the moment. If anybody wants to ask any question, please, everyone, put it in a QA or in the chat.
Okay, so we've done that one. Yeah, so this is about the asabiyya. While the questions are getting ready, shall I share that? Okay, oops. So with a first-rate intellect with vast interest in all major fields, no, we've said that one. Ibn Khaldun was, so this is Ibn Khaldun dilemma. When a group of people bounded and empowered by asabiyya reaches urban life and attains civilization, they lose their social cohesion and sense of solidarity. So this is a key point here. And this is, I think, for people who are interested in this to learn. And to be honest, you can even apply it to a small group of a family or an institution. It does. So if we lose the reason for our cohesion and solidarity and become selfish and thinking about our personal wealth and our personal luxuries, this is where things started to go in the wrong direction. And this is where people will start to lose it. Okay. And of course, there'll be like suffering among those people who are involved. So as individuals begin to enjoy the benefits of comforts of civilized life, in an urban setting, they become lax, lazy, and too mellow to protect themselves against the onslaught of those who maintain their Bedouin virtues, where civilization, Ibn Khaldun's theory started, because there and then in the Bedouin life, they have the ethics, they are clean people, they are closer to God, and they work for the sake of producing a well-established nation rather than running after their own personal wealth and luxuries. And I think these two, this is a picture of the olden days when the Islamic nation started to collapse in Spain. I love these pictures. It just tells you how luxurious their lives were there, and the people were on the street, hungry, and they had like their feuds. They started competing with each other. They became separated, and I'm sure you've read about towards the end of the Islamic state in Idrisiya, they had like small, tiny tribes. They were fighting amongst each other. They've lost it. They have lost their cohesion. They've lost their solidarity together. And I'm afraid that was the start of their end, which is very, very sad. Okay. Is there anything before, because I think we only left with a couple of minutes, before I go in some quotations? Is there any questions at all?
I think you probably answered it. It says, can the speaker define the word asabiya, as I'm not a native Arabic speaker? You did speak about
yes. Shall I explain again?
Yeah, define the word, please, if you don't mind.
Well, asabiya, if you want to translate it, it's like being dogmatic about something. I know when say dogmatic, it's not really what's the word? It's not really a good word to use nowadays. But that term for Ibn Khaldun, the asabiya, is a positive one, because he believed that if a group of people were bounded together, they shared the same aspiration, they shared the same ethics, the same dreams, which is all like not about one person, but about a group, or maybe a nation, or humanity, to provide them with their needs, to protect them, to be kind to them, okay, not being greedy and selfish, then that is a good asabiya. But if you are asabiya and you are doing a wrong thing, and then you want people to support you on that, then it will be a bad asabiya. Because if you are doing something wrong and you admit it, or you fix it, okay, that is good. But if you insist on doing the wrong thing or protecting the wrong people because they haven't been good, that is bad asabiya, definitely. So so it depends. It depends on certain situations. The bad asabiya, of course, no one wants that, and we've seen it here in the 21st century. We've seen asabiya, which was very negative, and it was against, I believe, against what Ibn Khaldun called for. But the good asabiya is where, as I said, you act as a one group, but it's like for good things, for the benefit of the people, ordinary people, not for the benefit of those who are in control. Okay, and usually they will not do anything against humanity, or they will not commit any sins for them to stay in power.
Right, thank you so much. We're nearing the end, Sister Munira. I'll just share one.
I want to go through some quotations, if that's possible.
All right, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna just read them, and I'll leave them to you to think about it.
Okay.
Because I really, really enjoy reading them. World tragedy, because we rush saying yes, and we delay saying no. This is in Arabic. قمة الأدب أن تنصت إلى شخص يحدثك في أمر أنت تعرفه جيدا. The top of morality is to listen to someone who is talking to you about something, and you know this thing. So it's a sign of respect to listen to him, even though you know everything about that topic. That's another lovely one.
Oh, it is.
Throughout history, many nations have suffered a physical defeat, but that has never marked the end of nation. But when a nation has become the victim of psychological defeat, then that marks the end of a nation. And hopefully that's what we're not going through. So physical defeat, that is so deep. النوع الإنساني لا يتم وجوده إلا بالتعاون. Only by cooperation, only by cohesion, humanity will flourish.
Oh, that is so true. Absolutely.
Isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think MACFEST is setting a good example here, Kisra.
Mashallah. Wonderful.
Brilliant. Yeah. Man is the child of customs, not the child of ancestors. That's a good one as well.
Yes, indeed.
حينما ينعم sorry I'm going to read in Arabic now. حينما ينعم الحاكم في أي دولة بالترف والنعمة تلك الأمور تستقطب إليه ثلة من المرتزقين والوصوليين الذين يحجبون عنه الشعب ويحجبون الشعب عنه فيصلون الأخبار أكذبها ويصدون على الأخبار الصادقة التي يعني منها الشعب. I believe this is what Ibn Khaldun went through. He says when the ruler or the governor of any country is living a luxurious life, a very rich life, so he'll be surrounded by people who only wants to live their own lives, and then they will stop him from being in touch with ordinary people, and they will give him bad image about the people, and they will mislead him so they can stay in power and they live in their own life. And this is selfishness, this is greediness. And this is exactly what Ibn Khaldun suffered, because he was removed by so many times because some people don't want him to be involved in ruling a country. So that is from his own experience. Throughout history, many nations have suffered physical defeat. I think that we've read that one before. At the beginning of a dynasty, taxation yields a large revenue from small assessments. At the end of a dynasty, taxation yields a small revenue from large assessment. And I think this is exactly what Boris Johnson referred to. This is exactly the quotation. Business owned by responsible and organized nations shall eventually surpass those owned by wealthy rurals. Again, this is finance, economics. Rishi Sunak, I'm sure Rishi Sunak has been reading Ibn Khaldun's books because they are so good. Truth doesn't become more true by virtue of the fact that the entire world agrees with it, no less so even if the whole world disagrees with it. And that is absolutely true. And the last thing, I think, very quickly, and this is like a chart for the Asabiyya, though it starts with social solidarity, social cohesions, and then we moved, Asabiyya is the bond of fellowship that binds a community together. It forms the basis for the government, which has to keep peace and justice, two key words, peace and justice. This fosters a greater civilization from a tribe, from the city or a nation. After that, as tribe turns into a nation, Asabiyya is steadily eroded. When the leader is challenged, he turns on his own kin. This is what becomes selfishness and greediness and thinking about oneself. Okay, the leadership is also corrupted by luxury, fighting and extorting his own people. The leadership is now imposing injustice. And this is the start of going down of a nation, injustice. So we started with justice and peace, and we end up in injustice. The dynasty falls and is either replaced or its power is fragmented. The cycle starts all over again. And I think that summarizes everything. We have so many examples we lived and we've seen over the last 20 years that proves this theory. And this is, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, sister, it's 7 o'clock. Just we have to finish, wrap up. What can I say? What an amazing, fascinating talk. Thank you so much for such a very thorough presentation with lovely slides, a lot of research on Ibn Khaldun. And, you know, I want to read one little comment from someone which sort of summarizes. It's from a dear friend, Nenna. She specially attended today. So let's see if I can get to it. Just when you're looking for something, let's have a look, Nenna. She says, I can't thank you enough, MACFEST. It is a big effort to get knowledgeable speakers, and you do it every time, time after time. Brilliant. So it's a lovely way to end, and you are a brilliant speaker.
Thank you.
And it's been amazing, and I'm so glad we chose this topic with you, and you've really done justice to it. And if anybody has any more questions, they can join us. They can send us through our email for MACFEST, and sister can answer those questions. But at the moment, there were no questions. People were just listening to you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for giving me this chance. Yeah. Absolutely. And we'll keep going, Khusra. Absolutely.
So we have 2 more events this week. We've got on Thursday, I've put them in the chat, paper cutting, creative paper cutting with Mariam Golobi. It will be amazing. And then we have on Sunday a real big treat, Azerbaijan Festival. Can you believe it? All the way from Baku, 3 hours of pure entertainment, art and culture, cuisine, performance, music, carpets, horses, you name it, we're doing it. And Layla's here actually, and she will welcome you all on that day. So will we. Fantastic. And then, of course, we will have, mashallah, month of Ramadan coming up. We are going to host you week by week in Morocco, in Dubai, and in Turkey, in Istanbul. So wait for it, everybody. So thank you to all our attendees for joining us again. Those of you who've been regularly our followers, welcome to the new ones, wherever you're sitting, whether in Athens, whether in Baku, whether in Almaty, or whether in Manchester and London. And thank you so much, Munira, for your wonderful session. I loved it. And everybody, if you missed any bits of it, it's there on our Facebook, live streamed, and there'll be a recording we will put up on our MACFEST YouTube channel. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time again. Assalamu alaikum.